I never thought my life would take the turn it did. You see, I was just an average guy, working hard to build my career. It wasn't flashy, nothing fancy. I worked at a mid-sized firm as a project manager. But everything changed when I got a new boss. Her name was Laura. She was confident, driven, and someone you just couldn't ignore when she walked into the room. At first, I didn't think much of her. I mean, sure, she was attractive. Tall, with striking green eyes and this commanding presence that made everyone sit up a little straighter when she talked. But I kept it professional. I had to, after all. She was my boss. But soon, things got complicated. It started out innocent. She'd invite me to meetings that weren't really necessary, or ask for my opinion on projects she didn't need my input on. I figured it was just her management style, you know? She wanted to be thorough. But then came the late nights. It always seemed like there was an urgent task, a last-minute report, or something that needed attention after hours. And it was always just the two of us. We'd sit in her office, going over spreadsheets or client reports, and I'd catch her looking at me. Not just a casual glance, but this lingering look that sent shivers down my spine. I'd brush it off, reminding myself she was married. She had a husband, and from what I heard around the office, they seemed happy. But one night, everything changed. It was after one of those long, late-night meetings. She asked if I wanted to grab a drink just to unwind after the stressful week. I didn't think much of it at the time. I mean, who would turn down a drink after a hard week? So I said yes. We went to a small, quiet bar not far from the office. At first, we just talked about work, but then the conversation shifted. She started asking personal questions. How long had I been single? What kind of woman I was looking for? The atmosphere got intense, and that's when she dropped the bomb. She told me she had feelings for me, said she couldn't stop thinking about me, that it had been going on for months. I was stunned. I didn't know what to say. This was my boss, and I had no idea how to respond. She leaned in closer, and before I knew it, she kissed me. Right there, in the middle of the bar. It felt like everything was moving in slow motion. Part of me wanted to stop her, but another part didn't. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed her before, that I hadn't thought about her in ways I shouldn't have. But this was different. This was real, and it was happening right in front of me. After that night, things escalated quickly. We started seeing each other in secret. Lunches turned into stolen moments in her office, and before I knew it, I was completely wrapped up in this affair. I knew it was wrong, but the thrill, the excitement, it was addicting. She told me her marriage wasn't what it used to be, that her husband didn't understand her anymore, that he barely paid attention to her. And like a fool, I believed every word. Weeks turned into months, and our affair became more intense. It wasn't just about the physical connection anymore. We were spending every possible moment together, and I found myself falling for her. Hard. I knew it was dangerous, but I couldn't stop myself. Then came the breaking point. One night, we were at her place. Her husband was out of town for business. I'd been there before, but this time was different. We weren't just sneaking around anymore. We were acting like we were in a real relationship, like I was a part of her life. After dinner, she looked at me with this serious expression and said, "I want to leave him." My heart raced. She told me she couldn't keep living a lie, that she wanted to be with me, not her husband. In that moment, everything seemed so clear. I thought this was it. My life was about to change. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Her husband came back from his trip earlier than expected. He walked in on us, and the look on his face. I'll never forget it. There was this moment of complete silence, where everything seemed to stop, and then chaos. He screamed at her, at me. There were tears, shouting, things being thrown. I thought he was going to hit me, but he didn't. He just stood there, broken. He looked at me and said, "I trusted you." It hit me like a ton of bricks. I hadn't just betrayed him. I destroyed his marriage, his life. And for what? For a woman, I wasn't even sure I really knew anymore. The fallout was worse than I could have imagined. Laura's husband filed for divorce immediately, and word spread around the office like wildfire. Everyone knew. The whispers, the stares, I could feel the judgment from everyone. But that wasn't even the worst part. Laura changed. After the divorce, she became distant, cold. The woman who had once been so passionate, so full of life, now seemed broken. She started blaming me for everything, saying I ruined her life, that I pushed her to make decisions she wasn't ready for. It was like the person I'd fallen for had disappeared. Our affair, which had once felt so thrilling, now felt like a chain around my neck. I was trapped in a situation I didn't know how to get out of. Every day at work was torture. I couldn't escape the mess I'd made. Then, one day, she just quit. No warning, no goodbye. She left the company, left me to deal with the wreckage. Her marriage was over, her career in shambles, and I was left standing in the ashes of a life I'd helped destroy. It took me a long time to pick up the pieces. The guilt ate away at me. I'd lost everything: my reputation, my career, and any chance at happiness with Laura. I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror without feeling disgust. Years later, I heard she remarried. I didn't try to reach out, didn't try to find out more. I had no right to. I had been part of the problem, part of the destruction of her life and her marriage. And now, I was left with the consequences. So, if you take anything from my story, let it be this: lust, passion. They can blind you. They can make you believe things that aren't real, make you do things you'll regret for the rest of your life. What started as a crush from my boss turned into a spiral of betrayal, lies, and destruction, and I was left to deal with the wreckage. In the end, I learned that some lines should never be crossed. No matter how tempting, no matter how much you think you want something, sometimes the cost is just too high.